My journey has been quite long. I would say it was around 8 years back that I came out to my family and my closest friends as a man. So, just for everyone's benefit, I was female assigned at birth and never really fit into the whole gender construct of female. And I struggled with it all my life. I was very highly dysphoric, and which made me go into depression, very high depression, once my puberty started. And then I got highly dysphoric once I passed the age of 18 and 20. But I really didn't know what was happening, what was causing these emotions in me. And I owe it to mainly because there was no information about trans men in specific in the media or anywhere that all the literature that I read about. So I think it's only around when I was 22 or 23 that I came across a particular series, a television show based in the US, in which there was a trans man character, and that kind of instantly clicked with me, and I just realized I am that guy, and that kind of led me to my coming out to my family and my closest friends, who instantly, I think fortunately for me, they understood, because I've been a tomboy all my life, tomboy to just put the term, but I've been a guy all my life. I never really fell into the whole conventional gender construct of how a female dresses or how female behaves basically in society. But again, it was a long journey from there, because I have two sisters who had to get married, and I didn't want my gender transition or my transitional journey kind of affecting their lives. So I had to wait for them to get married and be settled, after which only I kind of decided to transition myself. But throughout, I realized that over years my dysphoria kind of kept increasing, and even it could be the slightest comment or the slightest gesture that someone made at me, which would kind of prompt me to get suicidal. And one thing that I struggled with is the access to trans-friendly doctors, the access to to information on doctors who can perform sex reassignment surgeries in Kerala and in other states as well. And I was basically living and working in Dubai, and in the Middle East, as you may or may not know, being from the LGBT community is against their religion or against law over there. So I basically could not do anything in terms of even tell people about my identity where I was living. So it was a big struggle for me. And in the year of 2016, once I heard about the Kerala transgender policy, I kind of thought this was the right time for me to come back to Kerala and change my name and gender on all my documents. I was in a great hope that, since the policy was in place in Kerala, it would help me. Things would be easy for me, because I thought everyone would have the right awareness about transgender people. So, but I was in a huge, what do you say, disappointment when I came back to Kerala, because the first step that I had to do was go to the Gazette to get my name and gender changed, and the application form even did not have a column for change in gender. And I had to write in the same application where I wrote change in name that I want to change my gender in writing. And I was asked for documents of my surgery from a medical board, government medical board, which was clearly against the Nalsa judgment and against the transgender policy. And I basically struggled to educate officials, starting from the Gazette to the Social Justice Department, to the government hospitals, to even the Human Rights Office, of my requirement of having to change my name and gender as per the transgender policy and as per the Nalsa judgment. Clearly, although there was a very progressive policy in the state of Kerala, it was nowhere close to being implemented. More than that, people who were supposed to implement it did not have any understanding of it. They still do not. Sensitization is nowhere close to ideal, even in government departments or schools or colleges or any other places. So this is a huge disconnect that I found out when in my process of having to change my gender legally. And I had to go through a lot of harassment in order to change my gender, because I knew if I had to fight this out in court, it would take a long time. I did go and meet lawyers, and the lawyers told me the same thing, that if you go to court, it will become a PIL and it would serve a lot of people good as well, because I came to know that a lot of trans men who have also applied for change of gender in the Gazette, and their applications have been pending because everyone has been asked to produce the medical board certificate. But they told me it will take much time. It might take 6 months minimum they didn't know. So, and I couldn't afford to waste time, and I wanted to get this done immediately. So the only way for me to get my gender change done was to go through medical and physical examination, and which I had to go through ultrasound scans at different medical hospitals to prove to doctors that I actually had all my internal organs removed. And I had done my mastectomy, my phalloplasty, and I had completed my SRS. And only after that did I get my medical board certificate, with which the Gazette notification came to me. This was a very frustrating, very humiliating process, and an experience which kind of violated my dignity and privacy as a person, and I seriously didn't want any other person to go through this, and this kind of led my way into advocacy. It kind of made my foray into activism, where I took the onus to go to government offices, go to places and sensitize people about the transgender policy and people's right to self-identification, and tell the officials concerned what they need to do as per the policy. So during my whole process of fighting for my gender change, Queerala, the president of Queerala, which is an LGBTIQA organization in Kerala, kind of supported me and was with me all through the way. So I became a board member of Queerala, and we as an organization have been working towards it since the last 2 years. And right now, and in the midst of it, I became a part of the Transgender Justice Board in Ernakulam, where I worked very closely with the Social Justice Department in sensitization programs and awareness and training programs about the transgender justice policy, basically towards all the government departments, whether be it police, health or education. So this has been my journey so far. I go speak at conferences, take part in SOGI, that is Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity conferences and seminars wherever I can, try to create awareness as much as possible, get involved in policy making seminars, and bring the narratives of trans men, who are an invisible minority in the transgender community, because as much as there are a lot of conversations and narratives going about transgender people, trans men get sidelined often, mainly because of invisibility, but also because of the large visibility of trans women also, and people are so obsessed with the female body in our society. So this has been a big attempt from my part. Then in terms of what is it that public involved, okay. In terms of, so one welcome initiative that we had done in Kerala last year in May was that we had a roundtable discussion in the Center of Development Studies in Trivandrum, where we kind of discussed how the LGBT community can be integrated into the Panchayat framework. Now what I realized, or what we realized, that when a policy comes, when something as progressive as the transgender policy comes, it became a top-to-down approach. And this is good in some ways, but we kind of understood the lapses in it, because people at the grassroots level have no sensitization. They don't have any awareness on what the policy is, or about the community that you're talking about. So the kind of frame, a down to top approach, that is bottom to top approach, is best integrated by the Panchayat framework, and we realized that there's a lot of scope to integrate the LGBT community into the Panchayat framework. For example, in my case, I wanted to do a gender change. I had to go to the state to ask for help, but if this could be addressed by someone in my Panchayat, close to my ward, if there's an official or panchayat person who can come and help me when I go to them and saying, I want an ID change, how can you help me? If this can be resolved at very close to your home, that's so much helpful for people from the community, and not just in terms of ID. It can be in terms of medical help, in terms of education, or any other legal help as well. So this was a conversation that we got going, and as one good thing that came out of that conference was that a suggestion that I made about releasing a handbook which kind of entailed details the basics of sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expressions, the basics about the different types of gender identities and people in the sexual minorities, and also the legal aspects of it. What are the laws that protect such people in India, and what each person can do as a citizen of India to help out. So this handbook has been under works from last year, and it's getting released in May. And the purpose of this handbook is that it will be distributed amongst all government offices, schools, universities, hospitals, libraries, medical shops, everywhere it will be distributed. It would be made available at every household. So this would be a piece of document with all information for people from the grassroots to have access to in the regional language as well as in English. So I think it's logistically or not feasible for us to go to each home and create sensitization, but this piece of document, this handbook, would go a mile away. So I think such initiatives go a long way. It's kind of productive in making sure that people are aware of the basics. People are aware as a citizen what they need to do. People are aware of the different kinds of people that live in society and what are the laws that protect them. So I think once this awareness is there, people by itself will have questions, and when they have questions, they should we give them resources in this handbook of organizations that they can contact when they need help, of people in the panchayats, might be peer counselors or someone that they can contact to in case they know someone who needs help, or if there is a child in their own household who needs help. So I think these are the kind of exercises we need to take care, and this can be implemented everywhere in all states. And in terms of the conference that happened, the TransForm, I really liked it in terms of the speakers, the kind of topics that we covered. What was more something that I really liked was the audience participation. We had a full audience on 2 days at every point of the day, and questions after questions. Actually, people are not getting time to ask questions because we are running short of time, but also very intelligent questions, very valid questions that were being asked. My only little concern was with every other conference that I attend is that the exploration when it comes to the inclusion of transmen and genderqueer people kind of gets sidelined. But in this particular conference, I myself was the only person from the transmen community who could, but I was glad at least I was there to give my narrative. But there were other people who spoke of transmen narratives, but with limitation. So I think that's again a learning that we get to know by each conference of inclusivity, and how many more people can we include to speak about trans narratives, because trans narratives differ. The laws, how they affect a trans woman, they affect a trans man, how they affect a genderqueer person, it's completely different, and we need to explore this equally. And this is a learning that we get to know from each conference. Otherwise, I'm very happy with the TransForm conference.